All right, y'all. We're here with my friend Joe Sprankle, and we're talking about diet recently. And you've had some pretty amazing stuff happen with ketogenic diet. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I struggled with my weight for quite a few years, kind of off and on. I used to be a big endurance cyclist, and even when I was riding, hours a day, I just couldn't really keep the weight off. So I actually had started a consulting company, started my own company. I was working a ton, and I got really fat again after losing a bunch of weight and cycling and stuff. So it was around 2019, coming into 2020, I actually started having a lot of issues just health-wise. I had like tingly feet, my feet hurt every day. I couldn't stay awake. I'd go to work, it'd be like, after lunchtime, I'd literally be to a point where I would like almost fall asleep. Brain super foggy, all kinds of weird stuff going on. My mom has fibromyalgia, and my wife's mom had lupus, so both of them were pretty familiar with autoimmune type diseases. So they were like, you have an autoimmune condition going on, right? And so
they told you that you had.
Yeah, they actually had kind of a mini intervention. Like they both sat me down and were like, "You're going to the doctor," because I'm a tough guy. I don't go to the doctor. I don't do that kind of stuff. And so, to make them happy, I went to a rheumatologist, and I was having rashes.
Oh,
too.
you softie! My God.
Yeah, I know, right? I was having like rashes all over my body too. It looked like psoriasis, and so. Rheumatologist was like, yeah, you got psoriatic arthritis, we'll get you some Otezla, and we'll see if that works. And so I did that, keep my mom and my wife happy. I took Otezla for a few months, didn't do anything. If anything, I got in more pain, like more and more joint pain.
Yeah.
I canned that rheumatologist. I actually went back to the rheumatologist and I was like, yeah, so you could never tell me that it was for sure psoriatic arthritis. I've just taken, really expensive medicine for 6 months. No changes. What's next?
How much were the meds? I was just curious.
I think they were like thousands a month. I mean, my insurance was covering it, but in the back of my head, I was like, I got to take a medication that costs this much money forever. What if I don't have insurance at some point, right? I'm just going to suffer.
Right.
So there was really no end to it. They never could tell me, they were like, well, we think you have psoriatic arthritis, but we don't actually know. Like, there's no real way to diagnose that. And so she was going to put me on more drugs. And so I fired her and I went to a different rheumatologist. Yeah. Told her, I was like, hey, I'm coming to you because my original rheumatologist couldn't put their finger on it. I just did 6 months of Otezla. Wasn't really, super happy with those results. And so the second rheumatologist was like, okay, well, I'm going to put you back on Otezla because I think it is psoriatic arthritis. She'd seen all the rashes and stuff. I thought it was psoriasis. And so I did it for a few more months, and then nothing changes, more pain. And so I came back to her, and she wanted to put me on a bunch of steroids. And I was just like, nah, that's where I draw the line. Like, I'd rather be in pain. And so, kind of in the meantime, I had started doing a bunch of Googling and YouTube, like, God bless the internet, right? The amount of information you can get nowadays. And I learned about, inflammation and people that were doing ketogenic diets and having success against things like this. And so I jumped in, went full keto, and I mean, immediately, within like probably a month or so, I started noticing I actually felt better. My energy levels were better. Just not being hungry all day, just even some of those little things, a lot of the kind of, quality of life enhancements that I got just from being ketogenic and doing carbs.
You said you were eating steak salads a lot, or what was
well, that's nowadays. Initially, it was hard, right? Keto's hard at first. You don't know what to eat.
Yeah.
And I can get into that a little because it's kind of funny, even.
No, because I'm starting on it a little bit, and it's kind of hard because my body is shifting in ways. I'm like, what's this?
Yeah, and I didn't know what to eat a lot of times. Like, it's hard, and I looked at like, well, maybe I just go strict carnivore. You know what I mean? I would even get to points. I would say just eating pure keto where it was like, I'd almost get sick. I'd look at a plate of food and I was like, this again? Like, I wanted to almost throw up, right? Yeah. Couldn't do it. And I ended up eating a lot of, keto treats and going to Whole Foods and buying everything with keto on the bag. And I would kind of fall in and out of it, right? I would be like really good for a while. It's normally when I was exercising a lot and stuff, and I'd stick strictly on it.
You still riding?
Yeah, a lot.
Riding the bike?
Yeah.
Nice.
But it was hard. So kind of over the course of a few years, I kind of did that over a few years. It's really been like this year where I swung more to kind of strictly whole foods. So I've gotten away from like putting a label of keto on it.
Okay.
And I've opened it up a lot. Like I'll eat, right now I'm at roughly maybe 70 to 100 grams net carbs a day. So I push that up.
Okay.
Pretty much every night at dinner I'm having either, like a starchy vegetable like potatoes or something. I'll put some beans in there, maybe some quinoa, some brown rice or something.
Okay.
Normally at dinner I'll try to stay kind of in fat burning all day just because it helps with my hunger levels and stuff. But that's kind of where I've ended up after a few years of doing it, and I've been able to keep my weight down.
So you're doing 70 to 100 grams, but that's mostly just quinoa, vegetables.
Yeah, fruits, a little bit of starchy vegetables, and a little bit of whole grains. Things I don't eat. I don't eat processed food anymore at all. No keto treats, nothing like that. Like I literally eat whole foods. I don't eat wheat. I had my first colonoscopy this year. I'm getting older. I had my first colonoscopy, and the doctor, I forget what it's called when you have. It's kind of like these kind of divots in your colon, and they say it's caused by low fiber. So I figured, from years of processed food and then going keto and not eating any fiber for a few years, that probably didn't help. So I kind of pulled that back in. But the endocrinologist, whatever they call him, he was pretty sure. He's like, I think you're definitely probably wheat sensitive. If not, you may have celiac. And I've had a lot of like kind of bowel issues throughout the year, and he felt that might be all tied together.
Well, that's kind of what's happening with me on keto right now. Is like so I'm having to eat more fiber.
Yeah.
But I'm doing psyllium. Do you know what your? I read a book called "A Big Fat Lie," or no, the big Fat Surprise, and it was talking about how eating a high fat diet isn't going to clog up your arteries, and do you know anything about your arterial health? Or
I don't. I'm actually about ready to get a scan on that because I've actually had high LDL for years. And it not terribly high. Like right now, I just had a blood test. So my LDL is sitting around 130, which is borderline high, right? But yeah, I was eating a lot of keto. So actually, what I did coming out of that, I actually took dairy for the most part out. I was eating a lot of cheese and a lot of eggs before that blood test. So I was like, that might have something to do with it. So just this kind of a game that's been kind of one of the fun things about becoming, ketogenic and like playing with the macros and stuff is I'll just play games with my body for a while now. So I've kind of, for 2 months, I've basically taken out the majority of the dairy that I was eating.
Okay.
A good chunk of eggs. I really like eggs in the morning. So I've taken out most of the eggs, but not all of them. And I'm going to do another blood test here shortly and see if that kind of moved that LDL. But to your question about, a lot of the people like Robert Lustig is big on that. Like, don't worry about your LDL numbers. Like, it's all good, and they talk about there's other, markers that you can look at to see if that's a bad thing. But I don't know. Until I get a scan and actually see if I have a bunch of plaque in my arteries or something, I'm going to kind of lean safe, right?
I get.
Because there's so much opposing. Like, you can go on YouTube and find people on both sides of that camp that seem to have pretty valid arguments all day long. So I'm kind of playing with that right now, actually. That's kind of one of the things I'm working on.
So what happened when you cut out eggs? What did you notice?
Nothing. I haven't had a blood test yet. That's kind of been the last couple months. But
I mean, in basic like health or energy levels, or the way you thought or felt?
Nothing, because I kind of keep my macros. Like I took the eggs out and I put a lot more nuts in. I eat a lot of nuts actually, so that's not so much saturated fat. So I'm still getting fat in the morning, but now I've mixed it with nuts, which has fiber in it, which is actually keeping me fuller and stuff. But I like eggs in the morning just because it's kind of a fat bomb. Like I wake up early, I ride bikes. Normally like before 5 a.m. I go for like an hour-long bike ride.
Oh, really?
We have kids dropped off at like my house at 5:30 in the morning, like
Yeah.
kids, so we're early risers.
Yeah.
So normally for me, it's like by around 9, I'm starting to feel a little, I haven't eaten, like I'll fast till at least 9. But then once I start getting hungry, I'll eat. And I like eggs because 2 eggs will fill me up for like 2 or 3 hours, you know? So
That's cool.
that's why I like eggs in the morning, but I haven't been doing them every day. I've kind of taken those out and put a lot more nuts. So
Oh,
it's
right
kind of
on.
a game. Like it's kind of, you know, like
Yeah,
I
you play
learned
with it, see what.
so much when I went ketogenic and just playing with macros and seeing how like taking carbs out affect my energy levels, and then, you know, like the kind of the game of playing with it, I've become addicted to it a little bit, right? And I'm an engineer anyways. I'm a software engineer guy, so to me that kind of stuff's fun anyways, like
Yeah.
doing things and then measuring things.
Playing with the
and,
data.
yeah, playing with the data. So to me it's just been a lot of fun, but you know, through the course of that I reset my relationship with food, where it's like food's more like a functional thing in my life now. It's not so much like a sweet treat at the end of the day or something like that. Like all those kind of things have gone away. So and I think that's where the power is after you've done this for a while and you kind of reset that relationship with food.
Yeah.
And for me, that wasn't really like, I was keto for a couple of years before I was able to do that. Like I said, I would slip up and then I'd go into like keto treat land for a while, like those kind of things. That was really, for me, it was a big part when I took out wheat. That made it a lot easier to take out like all the processed foods, because most of those that I was eating were wheat related, you know,
Yeah.
cookies and Pop-Tarts and brownies and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And it just,
Well, I just wrote an article today on sugar, and it causes inflammation. Like you had the
Oh, yeah.
joint pain, and you get the joint pain and the rashes and the tingling in your feet, I guess, went away, yeah?
all that. The rashes are gone for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, they'll come back a little bit here and there, but I would say 90 to 95% reduction in what I used to have.
Yeah, that's
It's
crazy.
huge. No more tingling at all. My energy levels are normal. I don't have a foggy head. Like, I can literally go on like a junk food train for a while. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, right? We all
Okay.
get stress happens and these things happen, and it's like I'll just kind of lose control of those things because it is a lot of work. At the end of the day, eating
Yeah.
all foods is a different beast, right? than
Yeah,
just-
yeah, different relationship, different orientation
So there's
with food.
times when, you know, I'll fall off the wagon for a couple of weeks and like I notice it. What pulls me back on the wagon is I just feel like garbage. I'm just like,
No, I
you
eat
know what
sugar
I mean?
on Fridays.
Yeah.
And last Friday, I ate sugar, and by noon, because I ate sugar in the morning, I was just like, ugh. So it's just like, oh, direct
Yeah,
correlation.
all for the first couple days, the sugar will literally put me asleep, and then I get back on the train, and then it's like I just feel like garbage. But
Yeah. So so are you eating like the meat salads these days, or what's your fare
yeah, lately
when you jump back on the train?
it kind of goes all over. I'll get hooked on stuff. It'll be salads for a while. A lot of times it's just some raw vegetables with like hummus and meat. Like I typically, so if you looked in my fridge right now, I've got a shelf full of different fresh meats, right? I've got fresh like sausages, spicy sausages, like I got some steak. I normally have some chicken. I normally have some ground beef. And then I have a few kind of packaged meats that make my life easier. Like there's one that's like a chili verde pork that I eat that's clean. There's no seed oils in it, nothing. It's literally pork, tomatillos, spices.
Oh yeah, so you know about the seed oils, the canola oils and stuff.
Those are out too. Those
Yeah.
have been out for a long time.
If you don't know about the seed oils and canola oils,
do
that's a
it.
whole different beast. But short story, long story short, don't do it.
Yeah, and those actually I've noticed. Like I had, it was about 3 weeks ago. I ate some Fritos on a Sunday. I ate like a half a bag of Fritos that happened to be in the
shit.
like they happened to be. We had some people
You
over or
can feel
whatever.
the grease in your mouth, huh?
The next day I woke up and like wanted to call in sick to where it was almost like I had a Frito hangover. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So definitely
Frito
seed
hangover.
oil related, because there's no sugar or anything in those, and I eat quite a bit of corn. But back to the diet, like I just, I have these kind of different levels of meat I do, and then I keep a ton of fresh vegetables. Like right now I have in my fridge right now I have 2 kinds of carrots. I have carrot chips. I've got some colored stick ones that are kind of cool. I've got broccolini. I've been playing with that lately.
Oh,
I've got
yeah,
some
yeah.
asparagus.
Good
So I
shit.
just keep a ton of that stuff there, and I'll cook it in different ways. Like you can literally wrap vegetables in a paper towel, throw it in the microwave for 3 minutes, and it'll basically blanch your vegetables
Yeah.
for you. So
Okay.
I do a lot of that. I cook meats generally on the grill. So, I might heat them up for a second, put them on the grill for kind of a different flavor to them. But
Yeah.
it's just that. It's different forms of meat and vegetables. I love tacos. Like, I said, I do allow some carbs. So corn to me isn't a bad thing. So I
Okay.
don't mind eating corn tortillas as long as there's not seed oils in them. I'll eat those. I have some really good, organic, homemade, tortillas that I get, and I'll eat tacos for a week, and then that brings in the opportunity to throw some avocado in there, right?
That sounds wonderful.
I keep some different fermented stuff, like bubbly pickles, bubbly, I don't know, they're like actual, fermented pickles that have some probiotic. There's
Oh, wow.
this wild brine stuff I eat that has, it's fermented cabbage and beets. I keep that, so that's where I get a lot of my probiotics, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I just have I don't know, probably 20 different kind of menu items are kind of my go-tos that use generally the same ingredients in different forms.
Yeah.
And I just kind of branch out based on how I'm feeling that day, what kind of sounds good. But I don't run into issues anymore where I'm generally sick of what I'm eating. If I do, I love Mediterranean food. I'll just, DoorDash something healthy that's actually relatively clean and just kind of go that way until I'm good coming back to the stuff that I like eating. It's a game.
So, do you use butter? Do you use seasonings? What?
Not so much butter. Specifically, I've been trying to bring down my LDL. So if I do use some kind of, oil of sorts, it's generally olive oil.
Olive oil, yeah.
But
Avocado oil for
I don't
cooking?
get too. I don't really cook anything with oils. I do so much of just meat and vegetables in different way, shapes, and forms.
Okay.
I don't have a need for a lot of oils, and I grill most of my meat, so there's nothing that I'm throwing in a pan like that. So I don't find a lot of needs for oils.
Oh, okay.
That's not correct.
Okay, that's interesting. So a lot of raw veggies.
A lot of raw veggies.
Oh, okay.
My salads, typically that wild brine stuff I mentioned, it actually kind of works as a salad dressing almost because it's a little rough around the edges. So if I'm eating a salad, sometimes I'll just drizzle a little olive oil on there, but most of the flavor I get for anything I consider almost like a dressing comes from that wild brine stuff. There's times I just get sick of that whole flavor, and I'll actually make Hidden Valley Ranch. I'll dump it in full fat sour cream, mix that up, and just go kind of ranch crazy for a couple days. I think there's a bunch of MSG in that, so I don't tend to go there often. But
I've been making the sour cream, and then you put some of the garlic and herb seasoning in there, and I've just used that, and it's just crack, especially but I'll do chicken and bean burritos and just put that in there, or if I want to do flautas or something, but use that as a dip and air fry those.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bomb.
Yeah, and that's kind of been an I was never big on spices until the last few years when I got into this style of eating, and that's I have a spice cupboard now. It's just I love Mrs. Dash. I use a ton of that. There's a new one, I forget what it's even called. It's hilarious, the name that I've been getting into that I'm hooked on right now. But there's generally kind of a spice of the week, a flavor of the week, and then when I start to get burned out on that, I'll flip over to one of these other kind of items that I've been into, and I'll just keep kind of changing it up.
Well, in terms of training with riding, what happened with endurance and strength when you went on to keto?
Really nothing. I follow so I don't know if I sent you a link. I had mentioned I was going to send you a link to the Primal Blueprint.
Oh, okay.
So that's by a guy named
I'll check that out.
Mark Sasson. He actually owns forget the name of the brand. He owns a food brand that's big on the keto stuff, for salad dressings and stuff. I think it's called Primal or something actually, but so he follows a guy named Phil Maffetone that's kind of a little older that kind of created the whole buzz around ride slower to go faster back in the day.
Oh.
And so that's kind of the training I followed. I got into the Primal Blueprint right as I was going into keto, and it made everything kind of easier, but I don't go over 130 beats per minute on most of my rides.
Oh, okay.
So it's very slow, and the mindset is in that when you're riding in that kind of lower aerobic zone, when you never go higher, what happens is it sends different signals to your body to actually build mitochondria.
Oh.
And mitochondria is where ATP comes from for energy.
Right.
So what had happened is I got really fast riding slow, and because at the time I was hardcore keto, like 0 carbs. So I actually got faster by riding slower. It actually worked for me. Like I would ride slow all week, and then I'd go out for these super long rides on the weekends, and number one, I wasn't hurting because I rode super hard all week. And then number two, I'd been following this other protocol that was building massive amounts of mitochondria.
I didn't know that thing about the mitochondria.
It's intense.
Yeah?
Yeah, and so it's been great. I love it. So I'm actually right now, I just signed up last week. I'm doing the MS Beta Bay ride in October. I'm going to do 150 miles over 2 days.
Hell yeah.
I'm kind of going into it. It's in 6 weeks, and I was just not even really trained. I'm just kind of doing what I'm doing. I'm going to add some more mileage on the weekends, but I'm pretty fit.
Hell yeah.
I don't think I'm going to have a problem. If anything, I can go slower and pretty much ride off fat indefinitely. So
yeah,
it's going to be a fun test. Who knows? I might not finish. I don't know, but it's just another test for me. All this is just so fun. Playing with my body in these ways, and none of it's dangerous, when I used to race bikes and stuff, I was doing some stuff that was sketchy, you know what I mean? I look back at it now and I'm just I could have had a heart attack, you know what I mean? You hear about athletes going out, amateur athletes, and really pushing themselves, anaerobically day in, day out, trying to get faster and stuff, and young, fit people having heart attacks.
I didn't know, but I was talking to Jason Dobie, if you remember him, and he was saying that triathletes, some can keep their heart rate up to 180 BPM for a couple hours.
I can't.
And that what?
I can't.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Oh my dude.
Yeah.
You can keep it up to 180 BPM for a couple hours?
Yeah,
that's
you're
intense.
180 is gonna be hard for a couple hours, but I can pretty comfortably ride in the 170s for a long time.
Dude.
Until I bonk. You're gonna run out of you're gonna bonk after a while. But
yeah.
If I didn't bonk, I can run hot.
Didn't bonk. That's a good.
I run hot anyways, but I run high heart rates.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see after a couple of years because last time I saw you, you're big dude, and good to see you slim down.
Yeah, I don't know what shape I was in the last time I saw you, but like I said, 2017, 2018 is when I got close to 200 pounds, and that's back when I was still in Big Bear and stuff, so you wouldn't even saw me on my horse. Massive dude.
Yeah. So what are you now?
Sitting around 140-ish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, I was thinking we could just wrap it up, so I want to keep these relatively short, but any closing comments?
Just do it. Considering doing it. Just do it, measure it, have fun with it, and learn a bunch, and your life will get better.
Nice.
It's crazy.
All right. Joe Sprankle, guys. Thanks a lot, bud.